Sheppard.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'd like to start with a piece of context as well, because the reason why we're here discussing this is because of what happened on the 18th of September last year, when the Scottish people were invited to give their views on the proposition as to whether Scotland should become a self-governing nation. They voted 55 to 45 no to that proposition. Now, I don't look into the minds and know the settled will of all of the people that voted in that referendum, but I do know this, that in amongst the 55% who voted no, there were plenty of people who thought that the Union as it exists today is exactly the type of place they'd like to live in, and they had no quarrel with it. They liked the constitutional settlement. But also in amongst that 55%, and the group that made the difference to the outcome, were people who believed what they were told by the leaders of all the Unionist parties, that in fact the vote on the 18th of September was not a vote for the status quo, it was a vote for a new relationship within the Union where additional powers would be transferred. That was the vow that was signed by the leader of the Right Honourable Gentleman's Party and by two other party leaders who now must be described as former. But it was put front and centre in front of the electorate. And that is why people voted no to that proposition. We then went on to have the Smith Commission to consider what that would be, and there had to be a five-party discussion, and it's the nature of these things. If you're seeking consensus, the bar is going to be pretty low. But the Smith Commission came out with a report on how these proposals for greater devolution might be implemented. Our party at the time signed off on them, but said this is only a floor, not a ceiling, to the aspirations we have for self-government. And we said that Smith did not go far enough to satisfy the vow. Then we get to the beginning of this year when we have the draft bill, the first draft of the bill we are now discussing, published by the government. And it was quite clear then that in fact the proposals had been watered down even more. And now we have a Smith Commission not delivering the vow, and we have a draft bill not even delivering the Smith Commission. That's not just our view, but that certainly was view. The Right Honourable Gentleman who spoke last would probably say, well, we would say that, wouldn't we, because we're going to be dissatisfied with whatever happens. Well, maybe we would, but do you know what we did? Your party may be unfamiliar with the concepts of mandation and consent, but we are quite relaxed about it. So what we did, having formed a view and analysis ourselves, we put this to the Scottish electorate. We put this to the people of Scotland, and we don't have to guess what was in their minds because we know what they did in the May general election. And I have to, my honourable friend from Murray has explained and quoted from our manifesto in which we stood in that election, but let us be extremely clear. This wasn't point 97 in our manifesto. This was point number 1 in our manifesto. This was the main theme of the general election in Scotland, and this was the central proposition of our party, that there should be additional powers come to the Scottish Government over and beyond what was in the bill. I would be happy to give...
Does the honourable gentleman accept that last year's referendum was once in a lifetime? Yes or no?
The Smith Commission doesn't accept.
I never said that. I accept this, and I put it back to you, and I think every government should accept this, that no government has the right to stand in the way of people who wish a particular direction. And I'd prefer to make some progress if I may. I'll give way in a moment. So we sought a mandate, and we got a mandate. And whatever happens here today, please understand that this bill does not satisfy the aspirations of the Scottish people for greater control over their own affairs. This bill is a response to the Smith Commission. We are still waiting for what the government's response to the general election was when the people of Scotland made their view quite clear. And whatever happens today, this isn't over. We shall be coming back during the next 5 years of our domain in this chamber to argue again and again for more powers for the Scottish Government to satisfy the aspirations of the Scottish people. And if that takes a further Scotland bill at some stage later on, then so be it. I'll give way.
Thank you very much. Would the member not understand that
the rest of the United Kingdom also would like to have a say in this debate. And this debate is not just about Scotland, it is about, in my case, the Ulster Scots, in my case, it is everyone else. You had a very good indication of how the Scottish feel. The rest of us have not had that chance to discuss exactly the same points with our own electorate. And the message I was getting loud and clear from my Northern Irish electorate, knocking on the doors.
Very long. So if you could, yes.
Take on board that the message I got from my electorate is the union is in danger and they do not want the union to fall apart. They want all of us working together.
Well, you must speak for the people that elected you, and I will speak for the people that elected me. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm discussing the Scotland Bill as amended. That's what I've been speaking on, what I intend to speak on. So we have this situation where this bill falls far short of the expectations, not just that this party have, but that the people of Scotland have, Scottish civic society, the trade unions, the churches, the voluntary organisations, all throughout of Scotland. They are disappointed at the poverty of ambition of this Secretary of State and this government in terms of what's in this bill. But let us come back to the bill itself, because I guess it's all we have for the present. And I don't normally read, but I wanted to read this so I don't get it wrong. The Secretary of State said on the 8th of June, "I am absolutely clear that the Scotland Bill does fulfil in full the recommendations of the Smith Commission." Now, obviously he's had the benefit of a relaxing summer to consider the situation and to understand whether that statement is in fact true. It now seems that it cannot have been true, because we have no less, and I've counted them, 128 amendments from the government to their own bill. I would submit that never in the field of discussion on legislation has a proposal been so amended by its proposers and still managed to fall so far short of its declared objectives. But nonetheless, it is welcome that second thoughts are being had and that some improvements are being made. And the first one I'd like to start with really is on this question of permanence. And I wonder why it's taken to now for this to happen, but it is right, it's good that in New Clause 12 that we have the agreement that the Scottish Parliament will not be taken away, dissolved or otherwise removed without first there being a plebiscite amongst the Scottish people and then voting in a referendum that that's what they want to do. I am pleased that the Secretary of State, in bringing forward that amendment, recognises where sovereignty lies in this question, that it should lie with the people of Scotland, whose government we are discussing. I would invite him to support our proposal, the new clause 36, which takes and enshrines that principle of sovereignty a little bit further and says that when we come to discussions in the future about the arrangements for the Government of Scotland, it should be the people of Scotland's Parliament that determine what those discussions are and the timetable by which they are put to the people in a referendum. That seems only a logical extension once you have conceded that sovereignty should lie with the people. And if not the Scottish Parliament, if it's not the Scottish Parliament that should consider and respond to demands for a future referendum, were there to be one, then who else should it be? It would be ridiculous, surely, for this Parliament to retain that power for itself. I want to just also to talk about the process, the Sewel Convention. The Smith Commission was quite clear that it said that the Sewel Convention should be enshrined in statute. The bill still, after all of this time, does not make that happen. The Sewel Convention is a convention that says that the Imperial Parliament, to quote the member for Gainsborough, the Imperial Parliament should not interfere in devolved decisions by the Scottish Parliament or other devolved assemblies. So why can we not enshrine that? If we pass the SNP amendment today, we will make that happen. And that will enshrine the principle of subsidiarity and of decisions being taken as close to the people as possible.
In Edinburgh East, and I just wonder, given the codification of the Sewel Convention with regards to his new clause 35, I give him a commitment if he does push that to the vote this evening. We'll certainly give him that support, and maybe we'll attract some of the other benches and it may be carried.
I'm grateful for the Shadow Secretary of State's report on that matter. I mean, the principle here is quite simple, really. It's, you don't keep a dog and bark yourself, do you? You have to try and allow organisations, once you devolve the power, to get on with it. And I wanted to actually, in this vein, respond to the honourable member for Nottingham North, because I was disappointed that he took almost 20% of the time available to us in this debate at this time to discuss not constitutional principles about the governance of Scotland, but in order to pursue his subjects that he feels very concerned about in terms of the decentralisation of services. But what we are discussing here is a change in the constitutional arrangements between Scotland and England within the Union. We are talking about giving more authority, competences to the Scottish Government, and that is not the same thing at all as the decentralisation and better administration of public services in England. And I think you were wrong and not going about it the right way in terms of making friends for your debate to do what you did earlier. Finally, I wanted to talk about full fiscal autonomy. I think some of the opponents of this thought that we might sort of take this away at the last time that we debated it, that we didn't get it through, that suddenly we'd forget about it. But believe me, we have not forgotten about it. We absolutely want the Scottish Government to have control over the economy in Scotland. We want the ability to grow our economy. We want the priorities to be set in line with the aspirations of the people that live in Scotland. And I have yet to hear, in fact, I've heard from the Honourable Member for Gainsborough and others some interesting arguments in favour of full fiscal autonomy. I have yet to hear a principled argument against it. The Honourable Member for Edinburgh South describes his black hole all of the time, but that's not an argument in principle against full fiscal autonomy. It's not an argument against giving the Scottish Government control over economic affairs. That is an argument, if it existed, for saying we should make sure we get it right and prepare for that devolution of powers. So I hope perhaps that in the future he might come around to that way of thinking, which is why we should be objecting to the proposal which is here to give a Conservative Secretary of State the power to set up a commission to look into whether or not this could happen, because the Conservative Secretary of State has already made clear his intentions in this regard. I'm just finishing up, if I may. So we will be putting this again, and it will, by the way, be the subject of future debate in Scotland. I'll tell you what the grandest commission of all will be in this debate. It will be the electorate of Scotland who in 6 or 7 months' time will get another opportunity to decide whether they want to press ahead and have better economic powers for their government. And we will get another mandate and come back to make that argument again. And my final comments are on the fiscal framework to which the Right Honourable Member for Murray has already referred. It's not for us here today to get involved or even seek to influence the discussions that are going on between Scottish and UK ministers over the fiscal framework. But we do have to be absolutely clear about what is at stake here. The Smith Commission was very clear. It said that whatever powers are devolved to Scotland in this or any other settlement, it should be at no detriment. In other words, at the point of transfer of the power, the Scottish budget should not suffer as a consequence. And I would like to hear from the Secretary of State in his summing up that he believes in that principle and that is guiding the discussions that he is having with Scottish ministers. Because if this is simply used as a device in order to cut the Scottish budget and not provide adequate funding for the delivery of the new powers, then he will do himself a great disservice and his cause a great disservice, and he will fuel the day where we will come back with a new bill which will be considerably improved on this one. Yeah.